And here we go. We are off. So, 2024 Rosena Ranch Category 4-5 race. It's the first of the day. I was able to pre-ride the course out there a little bit. And then I got a nice starting point right there on the line. And so I'm feeling pretty good about this. And there you see me up in the front. I just was rolling up to those cones, and here I am. And so starting out, you can see that I'm doing about 300 watts or so coming into that first turn. And then I'm in a great position. I'm in third place right here. I'm feeling like I'm just going to probably keep on these guys for a little while, and when they start peeling off, then I'll take my turn at the front and keep working it like that. So you can see that they're starting hard. I'm up in the 700 watts right there, and this is about to start going down. I mean, it's going downhill right now. It says 0 degree grade, but really it's a little bit of a downhill right here. And I'm tucked right behind this guy, drafting pretty good off him. So I'm pretty happy about this. I'm feeling great at this point. You can see that we're doing over 30 miles per hour, -4 grade right there, and the front guy just peeled off. He did his turn, and so I assume the same thing is going to happen right here. So I'm doing about 200 watts, between 200 and 300, keeping this guy, and I think this is going pretty well. Here I'm up into the 400 watt range actually, and I'm not feeling too bad about it because I'm still drafting well. And now is my turn. Okay, we got a pedestrian up here. This guy is not in the race. I don't know where he's coming from, but he's just doing his ride while I'm taking my lead. And so I'm doing over 300 watts, and this is where the climb starts. We're up to 2%. I'm up into the 500 watt range, 3% grade, 4% grade. It's going to get a little bit steeper, and then I pull off to the side, and this guy passes me. But I look behind me, and everybody's right there. They're passing me on both sides. And notice every person that passes me looks over their shoulder in my direction. And I'm a little bit curious about that. Like what? Do I got food on my face? Is something going on here? Am I not doing things right? With them passing me on both sides, I'm a little bit concerned and a little bit weirded out about it. And so you can see that I'm still doing 300, 400 watts. It's still 4%, and the hill is not very long. It's going to level out here in just a moment, but I'm doing upwards of in the high 300s into the 400 watt range for a little bit there, and people are just flying right by me. They're just going, and after about a minute of that, man, I need a little bit of a break. So my watts dropped down. You could see that I was down to like 145-ish watts, and it's fluctuating a little bit now. It's slightly downhill right here. You can't really tell that much, but it is. And so I coast into this turn. I don't want to tap my brakes. I want to keep my momentum moving. And then I make that turn. I feel pretty good about it. And then I'm standing up. My watts back up to the 500, 600, 700 range. To get that momentum moving, and I want to close this gap here, and I think I'm doing pretty good, but I did feel pretty exhausted after that climb. So I'm actually surprised that I was able to keep this 300 watt pace coming out of that turn right after that big climb, because I didn't feel like I really got much break there. Now you can see that this guy is gapping me. So now's when I'm starting to get a little bit worried. So I'm going to try and catch up to this guy right here. Oh, and then another person passes me. And I'm pretty comfortable around 220 or so. If I have to do much more than 220, then it gets a little bit uncomfortable, but I think I could hold that for quite a while. It's the surges that were really taxing me. You know, when you have to do 400 for a minute, then it's hard to get back to your chill pace. And so here you can see they're gapping me left and right. Like I just can't hang on. And this was right at the downhill. Okay, so people are just going right by me. That guy came right by me. I wasn't able to jump on his wheel. I'm only able to sustain about 175 watts right here, and so I know that I'm in trouble, which is disappointing because this is the first lap. All right, if I can't hang in there with the peloton on the first lap, then I feel like I don't have business being in this race. But there were these other two guys, and I was like, okay, maybe I can hang on to them. So I put my watts back up to mid 300 range. I was getting near 400 right there, but still, they're gapping me. And now we're going back uphill, 4% right here, and I'm just not hanging on. It's just not working out. And here's the start line. So I cross the start line, and I hear the announcer say to the other guy that this is the last guy. This is the last person. This is the only person off the back. And so these two guys in front of me are also off the back, but man, I was off the back. So anyway, I was hoping to not be pulled from the race, which I don't end up getting pulled from the race. But man, you could see that I'm back there pretty far. And now I'm going downhill again. And so my miles per hour are up to 20, which if you remember on the last lap, I was up to 32 miles per hour, I believe. And so at this point, I need a rest. Like, I'm down to 130 watts because I'm gassed out from that first lap. And I needed to stick with somebody for that entire first lap, and I wasn't able to do it. And so now, after working my butt off for that first 2 miles, now I need a rest. And since there's nobody in sight, there's nobody around me, I don't have any help, which is just because I wasn't able to hang. Now I've got to do it all on my own. So I needed that little break just a minute ago, and now I'm kind of trying to gear up into time trial status. And this is going to be a long race, okay? To be dropped in the first lap, I'm worried now because I'm going to have to do 9 of these laps with nobody around. Now I'm actually speeding this up just a little bit. I'm doing ×2 speed because I want to kind of get a little bit further ahead, which you can see I'm going up the hill right here. I want to get to the part where I start kind of analyzing where I'm at in the race. So I wanted to see how far behind I was from the rest of the group, and if it's all still together, or if the peloton split at all, if there's different parts, if people are going off the front. I wanted to see the action. I mean, at this point I'm in last place, and I don't think that's going to change, but at least I could enjoy the show. I mean, I love a good bike race. So let's see what happens here. So you can see I'm right up at the top of the hill right here, and I'm going up over the top, and I could see the peloton there on the left-hand side. And so that's definitely not the full peloton. What was that, about 8 guys? And then you got 2 stragglers, and then the rest of the peloton, and then a few more stragglers at the end. So I thought this was pretty interesting. My initial thought was that it was probably the Cat 4 guys that were off the front, and the Cat 5 guys would have been the ones in the second peloton. But that's not necessarily the case, because I've done a couple Cat 5 races, way back in the past, and I know from those races that sometimes there's a Cat 5 racer that just hasn't raced before. They may have been cycling for 10 years and doing 250 miles a week for those 10 years straight. And so they're insanely fast, but have never done a race before. So technically they're Cat 5 still. And so that's very possible here. There could be some new racers who are extremely fit, and therefore they can just be off the front. Okay, did you just see that peloton that was coming toward me on the opposite lane? Okay, so that's the women's peloton. All right, and they are a little ways behind me, not super far behind me, and so from this point, I have a new objective because I hadn't noticed them before. Now my new objective is to not be caught by the women's group, and nothing against how fast a man or a woman could go, but I want to maintain some lead. I'd like to at least, fend off my position, but in all reality, I also kind of thought, well, if the women's peloton were to catch me, then at least I'd have somebody to work with. I'd have somebody to draft off of. And, I could maybe take my turn and do a little pulling for them and keep their pace going. And it might be a little bit better than my situation right here, just riding solo for another 18 miles or so, which sounds pretty crappy. Now I'm speeding this up ×4 to get to some better parts, And you can see right there the peloton or the leading group passed me, and then the following group passed me up, going the opposite direction, that is. And there's a few stragglers behind. And there's the last, well, nope, that wasn't the last two guys. That was two guys, and I don't remember them from the race. So these two guys that I'm coming up on right now are just some random cyclists, not part of the race. And at least I passed them. Man, at least I passed somebody, right? So I'm happy about that at least. I'm able to pass a non-racing cyclist in a bike race. All right, I'm going to stop it right here. Sorry, not stop it. I'm going to put it back to normal speed right here because we're back on the climb, and I wanted to point out my watts. So I'm still climbing this hill up in the mid 300 watt range, and so like I'm not taking it easy. I'm still putting in effort where effort needs to be put in, and so see, like I'm still in the 300s. Okay, down into the upper 200s. I'm still hitting this pretty hard. And so if I'm hitting it this hard, I want to know how hard all those other guys were hitting it. Speeding this up again. So I was in the 300 range, still in the 300 range up at the top of this hill, and I'm going to go over the top of it, and then I'm going to need a little bit of rest on the legs. So my watts are going to go down a little bit. I'm not in contention, so I'm not necessarily, stressing about taking a little bit of a breather. But I still do want to keep my pace high because, like I mentioned before, I don't want to get caught by the women's peloton. So I make this turn, and every time out of that turn, I felt like it was necessary to, give it a little boost. And there, the women's peloton just passed me, and I feel like they're gaining on me just a little bit. So I want to keep my watts up just to prevent them from making that catch. And you can see there's a few people on the sidelines in the middle of the road, which are race officials, and I think that other guy was just taking pictures. But headed downhill right here, and so I actually found that the downhills, I had a hard time holding my watts. I think just because I was so worried about getting the higher wattage on the climbs and coming out of the turns. And up here on the left, you see that water tower. Every time I pass that water tower, I just think Animaniacs. Like these cartoon dogs or whatever are going to pop out of that water tower and start singing and doing comedy for us. Anyway, it never happened. But here we go, back up the hill. And so, on this side, I'm mid 300 watts again. Every time I come out up a hill, I'm trying to maintain that 300 to 400 watt range. Then I cross the line, and there's nobody really within sight of me. I mean, I think I could actually see the two guys up there that were closest to me, but as soon as they go up over the hill, man, I can't really see them at all. I could really only see them when I'm making that U-turn at each end of the course. So right up here on the left, you're going to see the leaders pass, and then you're going to see that the rest of the peloton is getting gapped more and more by the leaders. So there's your leaders right there. It looked like it was down to about 6 probably. And so this gap here, there's 2 guys right there on the chase. And then the rest of the peloton, man, they're a little ways back there. They're not even coming down the hill yet. So those leaders, man, they're on fire. They're crushing it. There's 2 more guys breaking away from the rest of the peloton and the peloton. And I'll point out again right here that climbing up this hill, I'm still in the mid 300 range. And so I want to be able to do that consistently throughout the race. And we'll see if I'm able to do that or not. But I think really that's what I need to work on here. I think where I'm lacking is being able to put up the high watts and then return to a normalized 250-ish watt range. And I think if I were able to do that repeatedly, then I probably would have been able to keep with the group. And so I think that's probably going to be my focus in training moving forward so that I have that sport specificity. And as I come up here to the cones, let's slow it back down to normal speed again, and let's see how far behind the women are. I'd be willing to bet that they're just up here on the left. And yep, from the second that I make that turn, you can see them right there. They're coming up on me. And so they are closing the gap. And there is about 6 of them. And they seem to be pretty organized. And so here I go again. Out of the turn, I'm up into the 400 watt range. And so really it just seems to be that I need to be able to put up those 400 watts repeatedly and then return back down to the mid 200 range without having to take a rest. And there's another group right there. I'm not sure who those guys are. Were those the leaders? They might have been the leaders. They were going a little bit slow because that was the top of the hill, so that explains that. Yep, and there's the chasers there on the left. And then I expect to see the rest of the big peloton coming up right here in just a moment. They're probably right at the bottom of the hill about now. And let's wait for them. Still not there. They gotta be, oh, there they are. So it's in pieces actually. There's groups of 2. Repeatedly, and then there's the rest of the peloton. So the main peloton is actually, looks like it's down to probably about 10 or maybe 12 guys at this point in the race. But I wanted to point out my watts, that you can see that I'm on the descent, negative 4% right there, and I'm doing under 200 watts. Okay, that's not okay. Like, sure, the downhill, you get going pretty good, and it's easy to let up, but I need to be mashing it and keeping that wattage high through the downhills, and I just couldn't do it. And so every lap, it's just the same thing. I get up the hills into the 300 watt range, maybe hitting 400 some of those times, and then I've got to make the U-turn. So again, getting my wattage high coming out of the U-turn, and then on the descent, I just can't do it. I just can't hold the watts that I need. So I'm actually speeding this up to times 8, and there I cross the start line again, and we're just going to keep going like this. There's not a whole lot going on when I'm riding by myself, so I'm going to keep this this sped up version going until I've got something interesting, which is actually right now. So I'm going back up the hill, and then you're going to see that the leaders are going to catch me right now. And there they go. Okay, you can see that I'm speeding up. I'm trying to jump on their tail. I'm at 700 watts, and this guy is hanging off the back of the group. That was one of the women from the who couldn't hang with their women's peloton. And so, man, I got on that guy, and I put up some big watts for just a few seconds, and then I couldn't do it anymore. I was thinking I would at least be able to, jump on somebody's draft after I've been resting for like the last couple of laps. I mean, resting, not resting, but you know what I mean. They're going full speed, full gas, and I'm not necessarily stressing about it as much as they are, I guess, because I'm already in last place, and so it's not going to make a huge difference, although I do want to put up a respectable effort at least. And even this far into it, I couldn't jump on their tail and hold on to them. So they were gone. Now, speeding this up again, let's slow it down when we get to the start line and see what lap we're on. So you're going to see the lap sign on the right-hand side right past the tent. And we're coming up on it. So, all right, here we go. Back down to normal speed. As soon as we pass the line, the lap sign is going to be right there. So 4 laps to go, if you saw that. And so that means that, well, the leaders have done 6 laps already. I think I've done 5. Well, I got lapped by the leaders. So the lap sign goes by what the leaders do. And so if I get lapped once, then I'll do 1 less lap than they do. If I get lapped twice, then I'll do 2 less laps than they do. And here come 2 chasers. All right, these guys are after the leaders. And so there I did about 700 watts to jump on their tail, and feeling pretty good now. I'm going downhill 27 miles per hour, drafting a little bit, and it looks like they're trying to get organized a little bit, but not wanting to take turns. That's the impression that I got. The guy in red it seemed like he had done his work. I don't know how long he was on the front, but he didn't want to do it anymore. And he was riding in the middle of the road there, trying to let the other guy pass, and the other guy was not passing. But finally took over, and then they started picking up the speed a little bit, picking up the pace, and I kind of just let him go. It's not making a whole lot of difference for me, and I didn't want to come up to this hill and end up doing like 150 watts up this hill. So I figured I might as well save a little bit of my legs, so that when this hill came up, I could put forth some effort and, get up it without embarrassing myself. And so you can see that my watts do get up into the mid 300 range, so thank goodness for that. I'm maintaining that ability repeatedly throughout the race. And so let's go ahead and get through this next corner. And those two guys who just passed me, they are about to catch the second to last guy, which I was hoping that I might be able to catch that guy at some point as well. And then here, something very unexpected happens. I did not know that these ladies were right here, but they are coming up on me fast. Okay, I'm doing 250 watts, and this one just flies by me. The next one in line, I'm doing 550 watts now to try and jump on them, and they've got a group of 4 ladies, and this just caught me off guard. I didn't know that it was coming, but luckily I was able to jump on their tail, and as soon as I did, then they kind of slowed down actually a little bit. So now I'm taking like a legit rest here. Like, I'm just going easy. I'm trying to recover from my time trial that I've been doing, and I'm just coasting downhill. I was actually coasting a little bit too fast. I started pulling up in front of them, which I was not ready to take a turn in the lead. So I'm kind of trying to position myself just on the back of them, and take an easy ride at this point. And I don't want to stay like this. I want to put up some higher watts, but I needed a little bit of a break. So I'm going to ride back there behind them for a little bit. So I'm going to speed this up. I'm behind them for a little while, about a half a lap. I'm behind them for another mile or so. And then I'm feeling like I'm ready to take a turn. I'm not sure if they want to work with me or what they want to do. So I was planning on, at the top of this hill, going up to the front, and I was going to go about that same pace and see if maybe they wanted me to work with them on keeping a fast pace. But then something happens. All right, here we go. We're climbing up this hill, and I'm actually not going too hard up it right now. But these couple of guys fly by. And so I was like, well, they're gone, but, I'm doing 400 watts right here. I was like, I'll go to the front of the girls and I'll take a pull up there. And they didn't follow. And so I was like, well, what the heck? And then these guys up ahead of me, they didn't seem to be going very fast either. So they just flew up that hill right by me, but then they slowed it down quite a bit. And so I caught them, and I just had like a 1 mile rest from riding with the ladies. And so I'm like, all right, if you guys are going slow, then yeah, I'll hop on and I'll work with you. So these guys are, they're lapping me, so I expect them to be faster, but they're obviously struggling a little bit at this point. If I'm able to just jump on at the top of the hill, and they're nowhere near the leaders, so anyway, I catch them, and it seems like I always have a little bit of a downfall after I take a turn pulling. Okay, so this guy in the light blue was in the lead for a little bit. The long-haired guy was drafting off him, and I was in third right there. Now the long-haired guy takes the lead. He does a strong pull. I'm doing 450 watts just to keep them, and this is going back up the hill before the descent. And so I'm thinking, okay, after this guy takes a turn, then I'll take my turn in the front, and I'll do a little bit of a rotation. So the long-haired guy pulls off. I'm in the second position now, and I'm letting this guy do a little bit of riding, and then I'm going to move right up to the front. And so here we are on the -3% descent, and I'm doing easy watts. I'm pretty much chilling. But what I don't realize is that there's some more guys back there behind us that are going to be coming up on us. So we're doing 31 miles per hour right here. I'm going to take a turn. So I move to the front. I'm putting out 400 watts. I want to, do my turn. Like they helped me break away from the ladies at least. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do some work even though I'm not even with you guys. Like I'm not even I'm a whole lap behind you, but still you're helping me through this race just to finish, and so I'm gonna do my work in the front. So here I am, close to 300 watts. Long-haired guy goes up, and then I'm seeing all these new people. Like this whole other group of guys starts coming. And so now I just did like a whole bunch of effort trying to pull. And I don't know that I was pulling even that hard, but as soon as those other two guys joined the group, then they all took off, and there I was putting up 500 watts to try and catch them, and I just couldn't stick with them. I just couldn't do it. So I mean, it was my turn to pull, so I pulled. But then in the end, after my pull, then I didn't have the legs to stick with them when they had to go up that hill. So I'm going to speed this back up, but I want you to notice right here that those four guys aren't very far in front of me. So after that climb, coming up to the start line, they slowed down quite a bit, and here I am, not that far behind them. Man, if I would have just had a little bit more to give, then I would have been able to stick with them for a little bit longer. And then they gapped me a little bit higher going up that hill, but not by a whole lot. And there they are on the left hand side of the screen. And then if you see this guy up here in the gray on the left, that guy is in second to last place. Okay, and so I'm actually closing the gap between me and him. And those four guys just went right past him, and he didn't seem to try and draft off them at all. Or maybe he did, and it was just out of the camera at that point. But I feel like I have a real shot of catching this guy, and that would be, some sort of accomplishment, some sort of win for this disaster of a race that I'm in. So I'm speeding this up again, and we're going to get to the end of this race, or at least to the last lap, and then we'll figure out what we've got ahead of us. So here we come up on the start line once again, and then right before the start line, this other guy comes up and passes me. So he's also lapping me, so I mean, I'm not in contention or anything. But here we go into this last lap, and so I'm thinking I'll just draft this guy for a little while and see what happens, see where he's at, and if I could follow. So we make the turn, and I'm going to stick with him just for a little bit. Then he gaps me, and I'm doing 350 watts right there, and it's just not enough for me to close that gap and cruise down the hill with him. So I let him go. Now, for the sake of the video, at this point, I'm just going to let it play out at the real life speed. And so you can see I'm doing 25 miles per hour, -3% grade, and I'm just going at it right now. But let's get into just a little bit of nutrition talk. I'm a registered dietitian, so I didn't have a whole lot of nutritional prep for this race because I knew that it was going to be an hour long or less. And so basically what I did was I had an easy carbohydrate breakfast. I actually had a bowl of cereal in the morning before I left my house, which was about 2 hours before the race. And so I had a bowl of cereal, so mostly straight carbs right there, not much protein or fat in that at all, and digest very quickly and very easily. It didn't have a whole lot of fiber. It wasn't like a Fiber One cereal or anything like that. It was a nice low fiber carbohydrate that will digest fairly quickly. I didn't want anything that would be weighing me down during the race. And I know a lot of people like oatmeal before a race, and that's fine if you're going to have, quite a bit of time between your breakfast and your race. It actually would act more like a slow release carbohydrate into your bloodstream. which could definitely be beneficial. But I like to stick with my quick digesting carbohydrates. And so that's what I had, cereal. And then I got here, I did an 8-mile warm-up, and then about 10 to 15 minutes before the race, I took a char gel. So those have 45 grams of carbohydrates, and so I was like, okay, this will get me through the entire race. I've got enough carbs to sustain me, and so that was all the nutrition that I felt like I needed. The temperature was great out here. It was chilly. I wore a base layer and a long sleeve jersey, and that kept me at the perfect temperature. I felt like it was just right for the entire race. So I was pretty happy about that. I didn't need a whole lot of water. I had on my bike for this race, I had one full water bottle and then like a third of a water bottle, or maybe a half of another water bottle. And I had way too much water, actually. I probably only needed that 1/3 of a bottle because it was nice and chilly outside. I wasn't sweating a lot, and so I didn't drink a whole lot. I didn't lose a whole lot of fluids. I wasn't dehydrated after the race. It was a quick thing with great temperatures for a race. So I didn't need a whole lot of fluids, and I'm not saying that I lost because I had an extra water bottle on my bike, because that's definitely not the case. But that extra water bottle probably gave me, an extra pound or two, and so it didn't help. My 500 watts up the hills and around the U-turns would have gotten me a little bit further without that water bottle, but still, I don't think a significant difference would have happened. Now, that was my last U-turn back there at the end, and you may have seen that guy in the gray jersey pull off to the edge. And so at that point, I thought that I finally caught up to that guy that I was trying to chase down the entire race. So I was finally happy that I passed him, but then you can see that this guy on the back right here is in a gray jersey. So I'm not sure if this is the same guy or if this guy was a teammate of that guy. But regardless, for the last lap, I want to jump on this group's tail and ride that to the end. And I'd like to feel good about myself if I could, put a hard finish up to the line, even though I'm not even on the same lap as these guys. But just for funsies, I think I might like to do that. So anyway, I'm trying to catch the group. This guy is off the back of the group, and I'm actually feeling it a little bit right here. And I'm kind of deciding, well, how bad do I want to do that sprint or that hard finish? And I was like, maybe I don't want it as bad as I would have if I wasn't lapped by practically the entire field. And so I'm like, I put it in a good race. I'm about to hit my 18th mile here, and so let's just call it good. Let's just take a strongish finish, but not necessarily give it like a 1,000 watt sprint or anything like that. So anyway, I'm sticking to this guy, 200 or 350 watts up this last hill, and I'm going to come up to the finish, and I'm pretty happy just for it to be over, but sad about my performance in comparison to everybody else. But what I try to remember when I'm racing is that there's people coming from all over the place to do these races. All right, you had a whole bunch of guys from LA, I know, and there were other people that were registered from other states as well. So I know that this is a big deal. So people who are really out here, they're good riders. I don't know how races in other parts of the country are, or other states, or even up in NorCal, but down here, man, people show up, and that was a tough race today. I want to know how it would have done in any other race setting. And no, even though I came in last place, this didn't break my spirit. I'm still going to go out there and try a few more races at least, and some different types of races. I definitely want to get a crit in, and hopefully I'll do better than that. But irregardless, I want to get in some good training and go a little bit harder. And you get better at racing by racing. And so if I've got the right training program and keep consistently going to these races, then I think that's going to make a difference in my performance.